Hey everybody, I'm Joe, and we are doing another Marvel Multiverse character build today. Let's get into it. When you are building a character, sometimes you want to go into it because you have a certain theme or idea you want to explore. Sometimes you go in to build a character because you have a character concept you want to explore. Sometimes you have a particular way of acting in combat that you want to explore, or a particular pillar of play you want to be really good at, and all of these are completely valid. But have you ever just seen a power, a single power, and said, that looks like fun, I'd like to build around that? Well, that's what we're doing today. I was taking a look at powers, trying to think about what I wanted my next build to be, and I saw telekinetic toss, and it just looked like so much fun that I needed to build a character around it. Telekinetic toss, of course, is in the telekinesis power set. It allows you to pick somebody up and throw them, potentially throw them into another character. Now, here is an interesting point about this power outside of the theme and more about the mechanics. Normally, if you have a power that does damage to two targets, it splits damage between them. And as a result, I don't like those powers. I don't like powers that simply split damage between two enemies, because taking one enemy down to 0 health is mechanically more powerful on the board than taking two enemies down to half health. And I know that there are exceptions to that rule, of course, but I would rather focus fire and do significant damage to one target. Doing half damage to multiple targets just allows them to attack me next round. But telekinetic toss is different. Telekinetic toss lets you pick up a character and fling him into another character, doing full damage to both of them. And that's pretty great. Also, I haven't really explored the telekinesis power set on this channel, and that's not because it's not fun and it's not interesting. I just haven't done it yet. But it's chock full of really great stuff, things you probably want to do. And the idea of doing damage to my enemies just by picking them up with my mind is too fun of an idea for me to bypass. So that's what we're going to do. Today we're building a character that is going to go really, really hardcore into the telekinesis power set and is going to do his best to simply take his enemies and fling them around the battlefield. I'm not that great at naming my characters, as you know, so if you have a name for this character, throw it into the comments. I want to hear it. But for the moment, I'll be calling this character the Psychic Slingshot. Let's start with our occupation. And I have not had the chance to use the engineer occupation before, but I'm really glad that I get to do that here. It gives us the ability to solve problems with logic checks. It gives a capacity for us to be able to create devices, and as a logic-based character, that's going to be important, and gives us two traits, which are going to be Gearhead and Inventor. Gearhead is incredibly good. It gives you the ability to have an edge on all logic checks that have to do with how machines work. And since most superhero stories take place in modern day, this is important. This comes up all the time. I have a player in my game who has this trait, and he gets to use it a lot. As a result, I've started to think that it really is an overlooked trait. The Inventor trait is situationally very powerful. It allows us to have an edge on logic checks when trying to create or repair objects. Now, how good is it to create objects in this game? And the answer is unknown because it's not quantified. It's not something that has a very specific rule set. But I believe most narrators would really love the idea of a logic-based character doing logic checks to create interesting things. I think that's super fun. And as a result, depending on your narrator, the Inventor trait might actually allow you to explore wild parts of your imagination. And so I love that this goes hand in hand with being an engineer. If we have a character that is this psychic and it has these crazy abilities, what kind of an origin are we going to take? I really think that we could go any direction here, but I want to do something a little bit different. I want to do an alien, specifically Kree. Now, Kree are normally very strange in their appearance. They normally have blue skin, but I kind of think of this character as an alien who's just trying to kind of like get by on Earth, right? Like, yeah, I've got blue skin, but honestly, I just want to punch in for my 9 to 5 and just do my job. And then he gets caught up in adventure. The suggested occupation for an alien is outsider, but I think of this as a character who wants to be an insider. So he's going to have the alien heritage and extreme appearance tag in all likelihood, but he gets 2 additional traits. They're going to be breathe different and enhanced physique. Breathe different is going to say that we actually have trouble breathing in Earth's atmosphere. Now, we're going to have some kind of tech or some kind of other apparatus which allows us to operate in Earth's air. Otherwise, we start losing health for every minute that we don't have assistance. But this is just going to add some additional interest and flavor to this character. And I think it's the kind of thing that you can exploit in order to, frankly, gain additional points of karma. This is just a fun character building thing, and I would lean into it. But in return, we get enhanced physique, which means that we are treated as 1 size larger than we are for lifting, carrying, swinging, and throwing things, which is pretty cool. So we have some physical capacities, even though we're not going to be using them all that often. So it's kind of a nice just way of building out the character. And we get a lot of traits right at the beginning from this combination. I think that an alien character would just have trouble fitting into Earth's culture. So as we do our point buy, I'm going to go in kind of an interesting way here. I'm going to take logic to a 4, ego to a -3, vigilance to a 1, resilience to a 2, agility to a 2, melee to a -1. And that's going to give us defenses that are going to interact with powers. So melee and agility are going to be defense of 12, resilience of a 12, vigilance of an 11, ego of a 7, and logic a 14. Now you're probably thinking, Joe, you need to take integrity, which is going to allow your ego defense to be your logic defense, and we're going to do that at rank 2. We're not going to do it right away. The reason is most things that attack you at rank 1 attack your melee and agility. You don't get into people attacking ego and logic until later ranks, at least I'm betting on that. And as a result, I have other powers I kind of need to take first. Also, we don't have the ability to attack with our mind yet. And that's kind of a problem. There isn't a way for us to do damage with a logic check at rank 1. Everything is rank 2 and above. And as a result, I need to give us a weapon. And so I decided to go with adding points into agility, which means pick yourself up a ranged weapon of some form. A crossbow, a handgun, something like that. We will, by the way, be assuming that the weapon you pick up has a +1 damage multiplier, because we will not have a damage multiplier for attacks that are made using agility at this rank. And so if you pick up a weapon, make sure it has a damage multiplier. We're going to ditch it pretty much next rank, but we need it for right now. All right, let's take a look at the basic powers that we need at rank 1. We need some stuff that just shores up the character. This character doesn't really get going until at least rank 2. So we need sturdy 1 for 1 damage reduction. It's just one of those powers that is always important for us to have on almost every character I build. This is no exception. Next, we're going to take Brilliance 1. Brilliance 1 is going to give us 1 damage multiplier for any attack that is made using logic, and a +1 to logic checks that are not attacks. And we need these powers anyway, so we might as well start taking them early. Next power we're going to take is Evasion, as we talked about before. This allows us to use our agility defense for melee attacks. Alternatively, you could go the other way, right? You could bump up your melee and take the brawling power, but that would mean your character gets physically closer to the action. And what's the point in picking people up and flinging them with your mind if you need to be next to them when you're doing it? So we want to operate at range, so agility is going to be the way to go. The next power we're going to take in the telekinesis power set is telekinetic manipulation. This does not require any focus, but it is concentration, and we can manipulate objects up to a distance of 5 spaces times our rank. So that's 25 feet for the moment. We can grab small objects and we can move them with our minds. Now, in combat, the only thing you can really do is disarm a villain or try to steal the MacGuffin. That's about it, which might be something that you do. If you try to take something from someone, you make a logic check against their agility defense, which is why we really wanted to bump up our logic right away at rank 1, even though we're not making attacks with logic yet. The trait we're going to take is combat reflexes. You'll notice I don't have a reaction power right now. We need this power eventually, and I won't have the time to take it later. So we're going to take it earlier, even though we don't have a great use for it. In combat, we are not very effective yet. We're going to have a 1 damage multiplying weapon. Just pick your favorite. You could go frag a grenade and have a 2 damage multiplier, but then you're blowing up a lot of stuff, which that might be fun. Anyway, during an average round of combat, you will do 9 points of damage. Nothing to write home about, but it's going to get a lot better. Don't worry. Let's do point buy for rank 2. We're going to take logic to a 5, vigilance to a 2, resilience to a 4, agility to a 3. We're bumping up agility for the defense score, and we are not taking integrity yet for reasons that will become clear in a moment. In order to really get this character off the ground, there's something I've got to do at this rank, and it means integrity has to wait. So our defense for our ego is going to be a 7 still, but melee and agility are going to be 12, resilience is a 14, vigilance is a 12, and logic is a 15, which is respectable. The first power we're going to take is telekinetic grab. This is going to cost 5 points of focus. We make a logic attack against a melee defense, and upon a success, we grab the target with our mind. This is essential to be able to do the other stuff we want to do. Now, importantly, it doesn't do damage, and it does not interact with grappling technique. Grappling technique, as you know, is a melee-based power that allows you to grapple and do damage, but it does specify that when you grapple, it has to be a physical grapple, a melee grapple at a target that is within reach. Telekinetic grab doesn't count. So there's no way to make telekinetic grab do damage, but since it is a power, you certainly could do signature attack and have an edge on it, and since it is an attack, it would actually combine with things like combat trickery. Anyway, upon a fantastic success, the character is also pinned, and breaking this grapple requires a melee check of 20. So let's take a look at who this is really good against. Telekinetic grab is amazing against enemies that do not have a high melee score. Enemies without a high melee score are also the ones more likely to hit you since you are farther away. Enemies that are melee combatants are going to get out of this more easily, but you're trying to stay away from them anyway. So you're probably going to pick up somebody that is not a melee combatant and fling them into somebody who is a melee combatant. There is a tough choice to make about powers at this rank, and I hope that you understand the direction that I decided to go. It's a little bit strange, but it does work. We're going to take telekinetic attack, which is not what we were talking about before. Telekinetic attack is just an attack with your mind. It does cost 5 points of focus, which I'm not a big fan of, but we make a logic attack against the melee defense of a target within 5 spaces per our rank. Upon a success, we do regular damage. Upon a fantastic success, we do double damage, and we stun the target for 1 round, which is fun. Next, we're going to take Brilliance 2. Brilliance 2 is going to interact with telekinetic attack and allow us to do an additional damage multiplier of damage when we attack with our mind, and it's going to allow us to have an additional +1 to all logic checks that are checks, not attack rolls. And now we come to the power set for this rank and the strange decision that we are going. We are going into the super speed power set, and we are going to take our trait as surprising power in order to pick up lightning actions. Let's talk about this combo. Surprising power allows us to take a power we normally would not be able to use. I'm going to say that there is interpretation on this power, and I'm going to try to say what I believe the conservative interpretation is. The character, and I'm quoting here, will still need to have any prerequisite powers, but they can ignore rank and origin requirements. This trait can be selected multiple times. I interpret the character needs to have any prerequisite powers to also mean they need to have any prerequisite power sets. In other words, you must be in the power set and you need to have any prerequisite powers. But surprising power specifically allows you to pick up a power and ignore rank and origin requirements. That part's important. We can ignore rank requirements. I believe that lightning actions is quite possibly the most powerful thing in the game. It is probably too powerful because it is just too good relative to anything else. It's in the super speed power set and has, importantly for us, no power requirements at all. But it does have a rank requirement. You must be rank 4 to take it. It becomes a permanent part of your character, so there's no concentration, there's no focus. You get one extra standard action and one extra reaction every turn. Additionally, we can turn the Marvel die to a fantastic success when we make an initiative check. All right, this is ridiculous. Having an additional reaction, I've already shown on this channel before, is the great way of ramping damage. Using your reaction for damage is how I get characters to get really high damage counts, which is great. Having an additional action gives you the ability to use your really powerful stuff twice per turn. But specifically, lightning actions interacts with surprising power perfectly. The only prerequisite is a rank prerequisite, and surprising power specifically allows you to bypass rank requirements. Therefore, I think it is fair to say that this combination, surprising power and lightning actions, is the best trick in the game to ramp your damage. For all narrators out there who know that your players have seen this trick now, I apologize. So what this allows us to do is to have one action where we are going to telekinetically grab somebody, then use another action to telekinetically attack them. We still have two reactions, which we can't use yet, but don't worry, that's coming. What I really needed at this rank was the ability to attack with our mind. I'm tired of using the gun, and being able to do this twice is going to set up all of the combos we want to do. So this character is able to manipulate things with his mind, is able to grab people, and able to attack their brain. But he's really going to get good next rank. So what are we going to look at for combat? Well, you're probably going to be telekinetically grabbing one person and attacking another. But if you just did 2 telekinetic attacks, you would do on average 38 points of damage. So not bad. Let's get into point buy for rank 3. We're going to take a logic to a 6. Vigilance is going to still be a 2, resilience to a 6, and agility to a 5. I'm not pumping my vigilance a lot yet, though I'm going to need to do so pretty soon because we're going to start spending a lot more focus. But at the moment, at least, we're going to have melee and agility defenses of 15, 16s for resilience, ego, and logic, and a 12 for vigilance. As you assumed, because my ego defense is finally respectable, we're taking integrity. Integrity allows you to use your logic defense against ego attacks. We are also going to take brilliance 3 here, which is a 3 damage multiplier for any attack that uses logic, and a +3 to any logic checks that are not attacks. At this point, we finally get to take the core of the build, which is telekinetic toss. Let's examine this to make sure we understand it. You must have telekinetic grab and be a rank of 3 in order to take this power. It can be triggered as, and this is going to be important, an action or a reaction. The trigger is when you have a target, and I want to quote this, the target is grabbed. The duration is instant, the range is going to vary depending on rank, and it does cost 10 points of focus. So it's a pretty focus-hungry power, and we're probably not going to get to use it just all the time, but we are going to take a look at what happens if we get to use it as much as humanly possible. The way this works is that the person who is grabbed is getting thrown and automatically takes damage. even if we fail in our roll, they still take the damage. The roll is to see if we hit the second target. So we pick up somebody who is grabbed and fling them up to 5 spaces per our rank. So right now that's 75 feet. Upon a failure, our grabbed target still takes damage. Upon a success, both targets take damage. Upon a fantastic success, the one that we throw our grabbed target into also falls prone. The first person falls prone no matter what. To really understand where I'm going with this power, I want to come back to telekinetic grab, all right? We make a logic check against the melee defense of a target within a distance. This is a concentration power, which means that it lasts until concentration is broken. Make sure you know the rules for breaking concentration. I did a video about it. Anyway, upon a success, the target is grabbed, which means that the only way to end the grapple is for the target to break out. And it specifically says breaking free requires a successful melee check against a target number of 20. Meaning, if we hit them or fling them or do anything else, they are still grabbed. The condition persists until concentration ends or they do a successful melee check. Now we come back to telekinetic toss, and I want to look at the trigger. The target is grabbed, meaning the condition persists. If I pick someone up and fling them, they take damage, but they are still grabbed according to the rules of telekinetic grab. So if I have a target that is grabbed and I have 3 reactions, I can use telekinetic toss 3 times because the triggering event is still valid. Since this is also an action and not just a reaction, and if I have 2 actions, can I not do telekinetic grab, do an action to do toss, and then 3 reactions to toss, basically taking someone and fling them back and forth across the battlefield, hitting multiple targets? By my reading of the status conditions, the answer is yes. We can do this. We can just take somebody and ragdoll them across the battlefield. We'll burn all our reactions to do it, but I don't care. That's just too much fun. Please note, every time you do it, it does cost 10 points of focus. So you're probably not going to want to do that every time, but when you do, oh my God, is it going to be fun. The next power we're going to take is telekinetic barrier, which basically allows us to create a force field. This covers up to 2 spaces across, vertically or horizontally, our choice, per each rank we have obtained. We make a logic check and compare that against the agility defense of anybody in the way. If we succeed, we choose which side they are shunted onto. If they succeed, then they decide which side they're shunted onto, and the barrier can be attacked, but it uses our logic defense. This is just a great way of dividing the battlefield. We're not going to calculate for it, but this is a wonderful way of doing divide and conquer, which I love. The next power we're going to take is telekinetic crush. This is another reaction power that is triggered when a target is grabbed. It costs 10 points of focus, and we make a logic check against the resilience defense of our enemy. Upon a success, they take regular damage. Upon fantastic success, they take double damage and are pinned. It is inferior to telekinetic toss for damage, but if you just really want to kill that one target, this might be a fun way to do it. We have a lot of traits that would be really great to take on this character. One is battle ready to add in more focus, or 3 more telekinetic tosses, let's be fair. But what I'm going to take is signature attack, and we're going to take it for telekinetic toss. Each time I do this, I want to make sure that I hit the other target, and having an edge on the attack is just beneficial. So how does a round of combat work? I'm going to assume that we need to grab our target in the round of combat. So one action is telekinetic grab. Second action, telekinetic toss against one enemy. Second, telekinetic toss across the battlefield at another, and then back and then forth. 3 reactions and 1 action of telekinetic toss, assuming we hit another target each time. If we pull that off in one round of combat, we will do on average 216 points of damage. that will be spread between 3 different combatants at minimum, but we are just ragdolling people across the entire place. What also is fun, you could do 2 telekinetic grabs against 2 different targets and then start flinging them. And so you can do this against any variety of targets you want. But if you just pick up one guy and ragdoll him, he's dead after 1 round of combat. That guy is gone. All right, let's do point buy for rank 4. I'm gonna take logic to a 7, vigilance to a 4, resilience to a 7, and agility to a 6. I'm gonna have defenses of 16 for melee and agility, 17 for resilience, ego, and logic, and 14 for vigilance. First thing I'm gonna take at this rank is gonna be Brilliance 4. You knew that I needed this, and I'm getting it as early as possible. We have a 4 damage multiplier for all attacks that we use with logic, which is everything interesting that we do. The next power we're going to take is Flight 1. This is just such an obvious thing on this character that I'm sad I couldn't take it earlier, but we now have a flying speed that is equal to our rank times our running speed. Outside of combat, it's 3 times faster, but what is better than us floating above our enemies and just watching them just fly around bouncing into each other? It's a pretty epic concept, and of course we needed it on this character. The next power we're going to take is Sturdy 2. It's going to give us 2 damage reduction. We've had to delay the Sturdy powers just to get all of the telekinesis that we wanted, but we're finally going to start adding those levels here, which is good. The next power we're going to take is Telekinetic Protection 1. And honestly, this is hard to use for us. Telekinetic Protection can be used as an action or a reaction. If we are in any sort of danger, we can trigger it. It costs 5 points of focus. On a character that does not use reactions a lot, this is one of the most powerful things in the game. It allows you to create a barrier around you that has 10 hit points. And if something hits the barrier, no damage carries through, you remain totally safe, but it is destroyed. We can do this with a reaction, meaning we are almost impossible to hit. The problem is we need an action or a reaction to use it. My reactions are spent flinging people around the battlefield, so it's actually very difficult to use telekinetic protection. But in a pinch, this can save your life, and so we absolutely need it. I actually don't feel that these scale particularly well. Every level of telekinetic protection means that the barrier has an additional 10 hit points and costs an additional amount of focus. But once we're getting into ranks 5 and ranks 6, any attack is going to do 40 points of damage. And so the difference between Telekinetic Protection 1 and Telekinetic Protection 4 is trivial, but the first level is amazing. The next power we're going to take is Telekinetic Sphere. I really need Telekinetic Protection just as a lifesaver, but Telekinetic Sphere lets us protect our allies. We are able to create a sphere around us that is able to shunt out our enemies and protect our allies, and then offer them the protection of our personal telekinetic protection. This is the kind of thing you do to save your ally's life, and it is a reason that you might want more levels of telekinetic protection because it does use the same stats as telekinetic protection, whichever level you want. The trait we are going to take is Battle Ready. If you felt at rank 3 that you just needed more focus, you could take it at rank 3 and move signature attack up to here, and that would be absolutely appropriate. But we do need this eventually because we're burning a lot of focus on this character. This will add 30 more points, which is great. Our tactics will not change for the rest of this character. We're going to grab somebody and start flinging them at people with our extra action and our 3 reactions. And so if we pull all of that off, we will do to multiple targets on the board 280 points of damage. Let's go ahead and do point buy. For rank 5, we're going to bring agility, resilience, and logic to an 8 and vigilance to a 5. This is going to give us defenses of 18 for melee, agility, resilience, ego, and logic, and we're going to have a vigilance defense of a 15. We are going into a new power set. At this point, I have everything I want from telekinesis, and there's only one other power set that uses logic, and that's telepathy. So we might as well add some really nice utility to this character while our damage has spiked to enormous levels. The main power in the telepathic power set is telepathic link. This costs no focus and it's an action to get going, but it is concentration. And what this allows us to do is to establish a telepathic link. If the person is willing, we can communicate with them over any distance as long as we're on the same dimension. And we can communicate visually, verbally, in all kinds of different manners, which is really powerful for utility purposes. There are offensive things in the telepathy power set that require a telepathic link, and as a result, if the target is unwilling, we do have to make a logic check in order to see if this happens. However, one thing I'd like to point out is this is a logic check, not attack. Therefore, you get the benefit from the brilliance powers. I am not interested in taking any of the damage dealing powers inside of telepathy. I'm doing all the damage I want with telekinesis. So I'm looking at things that are going to have more support or more utility inside of the game rather than combat. And as a result, we will be taking memory blip. You can have somebody that you've established a telepathic link to forget something that has happened within the last hour. This is so much fun to play with, and there is a lot of reason to go deep into the telepathy power set early and start doing game-breakingly fun stuff with NPCs in making them forget things that have happened. But we're taking this relatively late. I just think that it's going to be fun. You will use it. You'll have a good time with it. This costs 5 points of focus, but the effect is permanent. You just have to make a logic roll against their logic defense. Fortunately, most characters don't invest in their logic score, and so you should be able to pull this off more often than not. The next power we're going to take is Edit Memory. We have to have Memory Blip and be rank 4 to take this, and it does cost 15 points of focus as opposed to 5, so we won't be using it as often, but we can cause somebody to forget the past and we can replace the memory that they had with a new memory we have created. This is going to be so much fun to be able to play with. And just to use to explore the world and mess with characters. Please note that there is a logic check determined by your narrator based on how complex the memory is that you are creating. But please have fun with this, and if you've used Memory Blip in a game and have done any fun shenanigans, please let me know in the comments. That is so much fun to read about. The next power we're going to take is mind reading. We're able to read the mind of somebody with whom we have established a telepathic link, which is awesome. We do have a logic check against their logic defense. Again, we should be able to steamroll this pretty easily, and then we're able to read surface thoughts. Upon a fantastic success, we can get much deeper questions answered about what's going on in someone's mind. I love it, it's fun. And you should have a lot of fun with this and be able to gather tons of information to help out your party. Of course, if we have a character that is now doing more and more and more with his mind, is reading thoughts, is able to change memories, I have to take eidetic memory as our trait. Eidetic memory means we do not forget anything. At any point, we can simply ask the narrator about information, and if our character would have access to it, we get that information. This is sometimes, depending on your narrator, a more or less powerful trait, but I think it just is flavorful on this character. Our tactics have not changed, so in combat, on average, if we pull off everything we've discussed, we will do on the board 316 points of damage. Let us finish this character off at rank 6. We're going to bring Logic, Resilience, and Agility to a 9 and bring Vigilance to a 7. This is going to give us defenses of 19 for everything except for Vigilance and a 17 for Vigilance. So we are now finally really hard to hit. We are going to take Telepathic Network, which allows us to create a whole network of people that can communicate with each other telepathically. We've so far been doing this with one person at a time, which is fine, but now your entire group is telepathic, and now you can split up, you can work together in tandem, and you will be able to create much more complex forms of attack. This is the kind of thing that feels really appropriate for high-level groups to get into. I'm just sad I couldn't get to it till now. The next power we're going to take is machine telepathy. We're able to make a telepathic connection to a machine that we have met, which is an interesting phrase, or seen before. We don't have to be in the room with it when it happens. This communication can be verbal or more complex, and we can do a logic check to bypass the security. I have a player at my table who took this power and was able to hack so much information about the villain's plans, about backstory, about other aspects of the world. It was a great way for him to gather information, to hack into basically the lore of the universe, and to be able to create strategic plans. I think this is an underrated power because I have seen it at the game table, and it's really good. The next power we're going to take is Cloak. We use the power of our mind to block our presence from the minds of people within 20 spaces per rank, which is a pretty big distance for us. Cameras can still record us, but people just don't even notice that we are there. A target that is trying to detect us must beat our logic defense in a logic check, which is almost impossible to do. The next power we're going to do is Mirage. We're able to create a mirage that affects anyone with whom we have a telepathic link. Remember, you can have multiple telepathic links going at once. This is a full sensory mirage that affects anyone that we have a telepathic link with, and this is going to let us do some pretty fun shenanigans at the table. Which I love. It does cost 10 points of focus, so it's a little bit expensive, but from time to time, you're going to want to use this. The next power is a little bit less useful, but I thought it'd be fun to take, and that's Grand Mirage. This allows us to create a mirage that affects everyone within our telepathic network. Now, normally the telepathic network is of people who are allies to us, and as a result, we wouldn't be creating anything that would scare them or drive them away or confuse them. But this can be used to create a mirage of what you are seeing to communicate really powerful information to them. So there might be some use for Grand Mirage, but I don't think it's as powerful as straight up Mirage. So you could take this, take a different power. You could take Flight 2, that might be nice. You could take an Uncanny power, but I thought this would be fun to be able to put into a character. We are going to take as our trait Font of Information, which means we have an edge on all logic checks having to do with knowledge. That is such a generic term that this is a trait that can really do a bunch for you because it's so generic. It feels right on this character. It'd be nice to be able to grab it a little bit earlier, but better late than never. If we are able to, in a round of combat, use one action for telekinetic grab, and use an action and 3 reactions to sling him into other people, hitting with each attack, we will do on average 352 points of damage on the board. On top of that, we have brought incredible amounts of mobility and utility. So this character is just crazy on the battlefield. Final thoughts. This is fun. I looked at this power and realized how good it was and everything it could do. The downside is that it takes a while to get this character on board. You're pretty bad at rank 1, you're middling at rank 2, and then you skyrocket at rank 3. I went into telepathy as our second power set because I wanted the utility, but there's no reason you couldn't just load up on sturdy powers and uncanny powers and flight 2 and maybe go into illusion for invisibility. There's a lot of things you could do rather than telepathy. I just thought it'd be fun to add some mind reading to this character. It felt appropriate. At mid to high game, you are doing insane amounts of damage, and you can do it at significant distances, and then you can fly farther away, which I absolutely love. I think this character would be a blast to play in game. I really, really do, and doing some things that I haven't done before with any other character build. All right, so that is the build for the week. I hope that you enjoyed it. YouTube's made